本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。
What's good, Internet? It's March 28th, 2023, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 553. I'm your host, Rob Zachney, and I'm joined by Ricardo Contreras.
Did not accidentally type 522 on the last Waypoint Radio episode. Listener, you didn't see that? No one saw it.
Well, they saw
many
it if
people
they
saw that, and I saw lots of questions about like why did that episode disappear from my feed, and I kind of wondered what was going on.
I was like, if they're
but then I was like, I'm on vacation. You know who wasn't on vacation was Patrick Klepek.
No, but I will be by the time you listen to this.
Oh, Whoa. Vacation Patrick is
Ghost
logged
Patrick.
on.
I don't know. With like, there's like this week could go a lot of ways based on my child who seemed like they were on a trajectory towards sick on Sunday evening. Seemed okay today, and was handed off to my mother to watch and hopefully have the sick ship pass on a Monday. But it's possible that I too will be struck with you don't get a vacation, you just get to be at home with a kid for 3 days, depending on how things go.
Well, that wasn't me.
For me.
I was my own kid in that case when I was like, I have COVID and I'm baby.
Yeah, but then you also
Speaking
went into
of baby, we also have on her vacation countdown
Jesus
timer, Renata
Christ.
Price.
Oh my God! Hi.
So,
Look, we
did
can tell what's...
everyone have a fun week?
you got to tell me about this crawl space.
So let me tell you this. The king of executive function was in residence during my vacation week.
You were like legitimately hauling junk away, right? Like taking quantities of objects.
What I could not haul away, I had people with a truck come and remove from my house. Also, in that process, I learned just how hard it is to dispose of hazardous materials. There's only 2 pickup days a year where my city will take things like pesticides, paints, all sorts of chemical stuff. But of course, there is convenient year-round disposal at 2 locations in Massachusetts, each of which is over an hour's drive away.
You can't take them to like a hardware store? There are hardware stores around here that'll take paint.
You know what? I haven't considered that option, so I will call some of the hardware stores around here.
That is, yes, definitely do that. Like there's an Ace Hardware. I think Ace Hardware is just a Midwest thing, but like not all of them.
We've just got Lowe's and Home Depot around here.
But some plate, like if you have I would ask around because some hardware places you can drop them off and for a fee they'll dispose of paint for you.
We've got Ace and Do It Best in the city here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if Ace.
Well, actually, both of those companies are.
Ace isn't a company, right? Are
right.
They like a franchise thing?
They're
a network of independent like hardware stores.
I think the name for it is a marketing co-op because they all share the same marketing, but they're all independently owned stores. Yeah.
Oh.
The northeastern United States is pretty well connected by rail line, Rob. Have you considered just going to the nearest like train track or like and just finding a passing Norfolk Southern train and just being like, here,
or
take
I could just
these.
dump it by the railroad tracks and be like, they probably derailed. There was a train. There was a weird train. It was carrying 2 things of insecticide, a couple things of paint, and that was all it was carrying. We
were lucky. This one wasn't bad.
We did it. So anyway, it was a week well up, but the crawl space was, so I had this Christmas tree and I had this idea where it was like, we're gonna get an artificial tree and there's gonna be no allergies for, the holiday season. Instead there was COVID, but that wasn't part of the original plan. And
didn't get a COVID tree. That wasn't that one.
Yeah, it pretty much literally. Like I was decorating it and I was like, ooh, these allergies are really acting up. Boy, I'm gonna keep loudly talking about my allergies as I try to deny what is evidently happening to me. Anyway, so the addition was finished weeks ago, and then I was like, all right, now I can start cleaning this place up and get this tree out of here. And then I was like, I still don't have a place to put the tree except to this crawl space, which I have never fully plumbed its depths since we moved in here. There's things back there that like I have never seen with my own eyes or hadn't until this past week.
Which these are objects that are not yours.
Right.
They're just
Some of it, Patrick. And by the way, so this is a contributing like part of the why are the mice so bad in this apartment? It looks to me like the original builder back in the 80s, when they finished, they had too much carpet. So they just took huge, like too big for me to lift, trimmings of cut carpet and carpet liner, jammed it in the lowest part of the crawl space beneath the stairs, and bounced. And so for 30 years, there has been a huge pile of warm, soft, insulating carpeting material in the crawl space beneath my stairs. That I still haven't dealt with because it's like, that's like, from what I could observe, that I think is going to be like, the secret of Nim in there. It's going to be, it's going to be intense. So I'm not fucking with that right now.
Okay, so that was just put to the side. I problem identified, but
cool.
Will not deal with.
Cool compost pile living under your stairs. I bet that's really good for the air quality in your home.
Yeah, so I did. So, here's the thing. It wasn't as gnarly as I feared.
Okay.
Like, I do think most of the mice have sort of been chased out in previous months. It was a lot of vacuuming, but mostly the big thing was just like excavating layers of old toxic materials that like my landlady left here years ago. Ancient grout left from probably some patch jobs in the bathroom.
Ancient grout is my favorite thing that the Legend of Zelda Guardians drop when you kill them.
Yeah,
that's fun,
my
Kyle.
favorite thing in Elden Ring that I use to upgrade my sword. If I want to go to +10, I need more ancient grout. Where does that drop?
So it was real cool because my vacation started basically with I'm gonna tackle a few of these tasks, and then it'll all be wrapped up by like Sunday, Monday at the outside, and then
tasks beget tasks.
That was the dark secret.
Always what happens with house tasks. You all you're doing is opening a door to a multiverse of other housing options that are difficult to close.
By like Sunday afternoon, the apartment looked worse than it had before I started. Like there was more
darkest
shit
before
out
the
in middle of
dawn,
room.
Rob. I hear you.
Yeah, and so I you know what? I didn't let myself get discouraged. Again, king of executive function. I kept churning through it, made the hard choices, got rid of things.
Like what? I need to. This is why basically I started this crawl space conversation. When you get to the point where you were hauling things away, asking people to take stuff away. It's like, are we talking books? Or are we talking things obviously even we could all agree that of course you would get rid of this? I'm curious what level the king of executive function allowed themselves to indulge in during this
donated a fair
process.
number of books, but I needed to donate more. I just didn't have access to enough of them to sort of survey what I want to get rid of. Got rid of a lot of old hardware stuff, a lot of a lot of stuff piles up. Like there's a ton of old cleaning stuff that had piled up, stuff we bought 3 or 4 times over, thinking we had, because also the thing I discovered is we are amazing at losing stuff. And so from Mina's puppy days, there were 4-gallon jugs of odor killing stain remover that we had bought. And I swear to God, every time we bought one of those, we used it once. And then 2 days later, we must have had an exchange that was where's the stain remover thing? We got to clean up after. Oh, we don't have, I don't know where it is. All right, let's get another one delivered.
My mom is famous for this level of basic forgetting of things purchased, where especially if you go to her house, you'll open up the fridge and it's an adventure. It's which thing has she bought 7 times this time? And it's even worse at my parents' little lake house. We took some friends up there a month or so ago and was open it up and it's well, there's not much food in here, but there are 7 mustards, because every time she'd go up, she's well, we're probably going to do some grilling, and then would bring things for grilling, forgetting she'd done that every other time. Mustards? No, these are just, this is, come on, Rob.
Excuse me, those are my dipping mustards.
This is some yellow ass mustard copied and pasted 6 times. It's Wisconsin, please.
So that was another part of it, was like a lot of rationalizing storage. Like all the like floor cleaning stuff like ended up in one cabinet now. It's like we know where that shit is. All the various, we had done an amazing job of squirreling screwdrivers, power drills, not with the drill bits. So there's the like serious not fucking around high torque drill, and then there's the like just need to like drill into some drywall real quick drill. So there's 2 of them. This is MK's way.
I've lived in a
I imagine
multi-drill
drills
home.
as being more than 2 for some reason, because you always got the 2, right? You got the like, yeah.
There's the monster that's like kind of unwieldy, and you just don't want to bust it out every day.
There's the fuck around drill and the find out drill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But crucially, are they stored with their drill bits? No, they were not.
Of course not.
Gotta and also to add on to that, of course, there's the big box of drill bits, the layer of things you put in your toolbox, of course. But then there's your favorite drill bits, the high use ones, which you store in a different place. Much the same way that when you have an assortment of screwdrivers for every size and every occasion, you take your 4 or 5 most useful and you put those somewhere else where you surely won't lose them, because you'll need to refer back to them a lot.
Oh no.
And then you never see them again. And I did not recover those during the week of excavation. Those are gone. But and then it culminated once I got all this done. I had to wrestle that tree to the ground. It was like dressing a carcass.
Did you put it down?
Yeah.
Would you keep your loose pieces of metal from like various assembly things? Like I assume that there's somewhere in the Zachney household there is just like a box filled with loose metal.
That's a great question, Ren. I'm happy to report that there is a really sturdy cardboard shipping box that we have that is full not just of loose pieces of metal, but also prospective laminate samples we've looked at, excess bits of trim, etc. All that stuff gets piled
Ren, could you
together.
just throw that out and like your life wouldn't change?
No, there are like hinges for my closet doors in here. Like because I took my because in my bedroom, this room is this closet sucks. The doors suck on it, and so I had to take the closet doors off so I had room to put my bed in. And so, I keep the hinges for the doors in the metal tube, which I'm currently holding in my left hand. Let's see, there's some hinges in here. There's just some, what's that? Oh, cool, a screwdriver.
Is that a putter?
No, it's a Allen key.
Okay, it
Or it's
looks like a
wrench.
putter.
Yeah, Ren actually strikes me as the sort of person who, like, midway through the day would, like, take out her putter and like, put the little cup on its side and put down some, like, Titleists and just practice some putting for him.
This is several pounds though. I was just curious where the metal in Rob Zachney's home lives, because I assume, and I think I'm correct to assume this, Rob, that there is just a part of your home that you no longer remember where it is, that is just like piles of loose metal.
So actually, unfortunately, I discovered that box after the trash people had come through, and I was like, oh shit, this would have been perfect to send off with them. But yeah, so got through all that. The place was really starting to shape up, and it was like middle of the week, and I was like, still some quality vacation time ahead of me. And then my PC didn't boot.
Oh
It
yeah, I
kept
saw
locking
that.
up on the. I guess it's not really the BIOS screen anymore, but the motherboard like splash screen.
That's a BIOS, right?
I guess technically,
Can you
it's
still
not
hit F12 and go to a isn't that what you have to
totally
hit?
unresponsive.
But that's what you used to do, right? It was
Right.
F12 at like,
and
the
that's
boot
still there.
menu.
You still like the minute if you're trying to get to save mode, you're immediately like tapping that and everything. So it had done this once a couple weeks ago, right after we had a blizzard with a power cut, which kind of makes me angry because the thing's plugged into an UPS, and so that's the whole point of having this giant brick.
Yeah.
You've had issues with this PC before, though, right? I don't know if this specific one, but I feel like
So this is the new build that supplanted the one where I couldn't chase down what these power issues.
Oh, okay, all right, and then maybe that's what I'm remembering. I work with Rob long enough, and then the cycle of PC problems repeats itself as opposed to being anything else.
So I do the whole thing like, what could it be? And some of the answers are really simple. It could be bad RAM. Open up your computer, take the RAM out, like, you know, put it in different RAM.
Slot it out,
sticks.
slot it back in.
Quick point of clarification, Rob. I don't remember when you made the new build from when you were having the power problems originally. Is it completely new, or were some components brought over?
Fresh RAM.
Okay.
Fresh motherboard, all that stuff. But the things that are carried over are a couple of the hard drives, but not the OS drive.
Okay.
So it's a pretty new system drive. Anyway, so like there's a day where it's like Wednesday or Thursday, I have to reboot this thing like 8 times before it finally boots up. And I'm like, okay, this seems pretty fucked. So I start like going through troubleshooting, and I'm still having issues throughout the day. None of the easy fixes solve it. The RAM stuff doesn't work. The whole, take the little battery off your motherboard and, give it time to sort of reset. And that like didn't make a difference. And at that point, it's kind of looking like this might be a bad drive, or God help us, it could be like a power supply issue, whatever. And the sand in the vacation hourglass is running down. And I'm like, well, I need a PC. That's just science. Like I can't go back to work without some sort of PC solution in place.
Did you click on the link you sent me? Is this where this ends up? Is the link you sent me what you're about to tell me?
Oh, Patrick, by that point I'd done it 20 minutes ago.
Fucking Aussie handiest. The fucking
So wait, like,
PC purchase.
Like you could have taken it to like a local person to diagnose. You just went to click this link and just purchase it.
So it's not really like a local person that I have that like is there, but also it's like all the fixes still would have been time consuming. You know what I mean? It's like it would have been another thing where it's like going to have to, like probably like it'd be really annoying. Is it the system drive? So you have to get a new system drive in there so I can do like, check that out. If it's the power supply, that's going to be a nightmare to diagnose because I do not have a spare power supply, I don't think, around here. So all sorts of reasons why Patrick.
That's right, you have the local person with the anyway.
I don't have that local person. I don't.
There's always a hardware person in every city. I live in a suburban town, and there's one down the street from me that does computer repairs. But anyway, continue. I guess the city of Boston just doesn't have them.
Well, like, if I was in Boston, that's a different matter. Micro Center is right there in Boston, but I'm in Lowell.
Okay. Anyway, it's not like none of this matters. You already bought. Like it doesn't. I don't even know why I'm throwing my hands up. Continue.
Well, because the thing is, like, this PC is not being junked. It's going to get fixed, but like, I needed to be safe.
There we go.
A redundant solution, and since we are since we're in that realm, long term, this PC is going to be a capture PC anyway. So
you'll never do that.
Whatever is the new machine,
you are never going to get that machine repaired. It is just going to sit there in the corner, and you're never going to use it as a capture PC. I want this to be clipped out,
hold on,
repeated back to me a year from now.
Oh, I haven't gotten to the best part. Hold on. So anyway,
Jesus.
So I'm like, MK was on a business trip, and I was like, bad news, PC's haunted. And she was like, I'm so sorry, man. Your vacation has really sucked. I think you should just buy a PC. And I was like, funny you should mention that. I have some options. And, I'm not one for half measures. And, with the current state
this is why I stopped consulting you about my PC. You're like, Patrick, I don't Rob just kept sending me links like, I don't understand why you're getting this GPU. And it's like, I have cut you out of this recommendation process. I'm going back to Brad Shoemaker and I'm picking out my PC because I'm pretty sure I looked at the one you bought.
What? Okay. Rob, before I ask, which 40 series card?
Oh, the only one that makes sense.
Just say it out loud. Say it out loud into the microphone, Rob.
God damn it.
The 4090.
Okay,
Jesus
got it.
But that's rational. The 40 series has a huge issue where the 4090, while the most expensive card, is also the price performance winner. Like,
How much does a 4090 cost?
12?
Like 12 what?
1,200.
No, I know what the additional word was.
Are you
I just
sure?
want to make you
Most
have
of the
to
ones
say it.
I'm seeing here on BestBuy.com start at 1,500.
I feel like the MSRP, maybe it was 1,500. You know, that just makes the deal like that.
I'm not asking to price.
Maybe.
I'm not. I look, man. I'm only pointing out the funniest thing about this point of comparison, which is that your GPU approaches fairly closely to the total price of my entire PC.
Yeah, same.
Which is,
Yeah, bro. That's how much my computer
That's why I was
costs.
asking. I get why you. Rob has been Beetlejuicing a 4090 into his life for the better part of a year now, and so that part I get. I'm just cracking up that my Costco PC is more or less with tax, like roughly the same price as the GPU he got.
Now, the other thing is, you don't want to buy a 4090 and then CPU lock it. You can't have that shit going on.
Right, Rob. Right.
So you basically have to pair it with an i9 13900K.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's just, again, like, that's just kind of the science of where this is at right now.
Do you have a total there? You willing to share with us?
So the thing is, I was like, we're gonna do a pre-built, right? Like, and then we're gonna decide which pre-built is it gonna be as to who's like ready to ship and ready to roll. And so it turned out, it was like between MSI and Corsair both had machines ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, the Corsair was just speaking to me. I read some really great reviews about it.
The lapdog was howling from the vice offices.
Brand loyalty, absolutely.
Yeah.
Gotta get the reward points. I mean, what's the point if not to have that fill up so you can get a $10 gift certificate?
And obviously, you know,
To be used in the merch store, though, not to buy computers.
Yeah.
and of course, you know, this one, the MSI only had 32 paltry gigabytes of RAM.
Right.
This one has 64 now. Is that
For
a
what?
useful number? No, not at all.
To use on what? You don't do video editing.
I don't, but it just came with it. It wasn't even an option I selected. Once you pick the 4090, your options life gets real simple.
Hey,
Rob spec'd out like a 4K
I was gonna
VFX
say.
editor's machine so that he can run strategy games at like a slightly higher frame rate.
So I got this thing.
You did, didn't you?
Let's see. Vengeance. Oh my god.
Corsair Vengeance. Jesus.
Oh, well, at least it was a special price, Rob. Look at that discount you got.
See, no, like I was like, Pat is gonna be so proud because they crossed out the big number and there's a slightly smaller number, and that's what I'm getting.
$100 less. $100 less. This is more money than I've ever had in my bank account. I'm gonna faint.
Oh my god.
Well, it was more money than I had in my bank account too.
No.
But again,
How did that one business day shipping go?
Well, it's on its way. Like I'm watching it come here. So it should be here.
Now, how are you
soon.
speaking to us?
Yeah, Rob, how are you speaking to us?
The whole point was that. Did the PC boot fine?
So I seal it up. Give up.
Yeah.
We're all done here.
Yeah.
Next day, it boots up just fine. Now, it'd been doing this, right? It's an intermittent problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
That was like 4 or 5 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And every morning, it turns on just fine. And so my PC is kind of Michigan J frogging me here. Because I swear to God it was dead, but nobody was at home with me when it was like having these issues. MK, as I said, was on a business trip.
Okay. All right.
And so nobody saw the issue. And
Nobody
nobody
saw-
saw like the things
Are
I
you-
did to try to fix it.
Are you trying to suggest your computer's trying to frame you?
Yeah, nobody
it
saw
is.
Rob's computer stand up, sprout legs, and start dancing and singing "Hello, my lady."
Yeah, exactly. So now we're in like day 4 or 5. The computer, honestly, like, working just fine. It's absolutely thriving. Oh, we have this computer on its way, but that's not really an L, of course, because it's going to be a great machine. And hey, guess what? I've got this capture PC ready to roll.
Yeah.
For all those times your PC has been crawling while you streamed Rome Total War, gotta have that capture PC to. I'm sure there'll be no problems, Rob, when you're connecting 2 machines to one another to try to stream off of. Nothing complicated there. It's just a cable.
No. Actually, hang on. This is like Kato sorted me out perfectly like ages ago on this.
Yeah.
It is very easy because there's a capture card
There's a
in
capture
this PC.
card in the PC.
And so all it does
I don't
is
believe
like,
either of you.
This
it
was
just
actually
passes signal through.
this was MK's doing too. MK reached out to me and we sat down and talked through what the options were.
Oh,
Rob's
my God.
Rob's been set up for a while to make this move. He was just waiting, biding his time.
I guess this is as good a time as any. So this is obviously going to be, I think it's sort of a crown jewel in the crown of the king of executive function, and I think this is kind of what I deserve. But there is one more. So I'm waiting on the L-shaped sit stand desk that I was going to use to finish up this office.
Is it not a fully, or did you go fully?
I went with
The
Uplift.
Jarvis.
Can I see this?
Uplift.
Can I see
Different
this
one.
desk?
Pardon?
Can I see this desk?
Yeah, you just go to uplift.com.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Isn't your current
No,
a
that's
Jarvis?
not. That's a different thing. That looks like a Ponzi scheme.
This is definitely a Ponzi scheme.
It's upliftdesk.com. But I went and I got a custom laminate desk because that gives you the full range of sizes they make. And I got a L-shaped desk that'll fit like perfectly in the
Uplift L-shaped. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let me just look at these real quick. And this is the standing sitting one, the one that goes up and down.
Yeah, here it is. The custom
perfect.
custom
That would
L-shape.
That would be great if you could just link me. Link me this. That's great. That's great.
Yeah. So that's gonna be the desk. But obviously, with Capture PC and all that in play, gonna need 2 screens.
At least.
Yeah.
not?
Well, I kind of wanted to keep it to 2 because I don't want to like completely overwhelm the space with screens. Like this is also kind of a comfortable retreat. Yes, it's a studio, but it's also
What do
a
you need
place
2
to.
on the capture PC for?
Pardon?
What do you need 2 monitors on the capture PC for?
Well, one would be running the game, and the other would be like the capture PC when I'm like
Wait,
when we're
did you
streaming,
mean-
for instance.
Did you mean 2 each?
No, there's
Just
gonna be
2 total.
There's gonna be
2
2 displays in the room,
Total.
yeah.
Okay.
So Patrick's like, yeah, there's gonna be a TV running the game that I'm watching for play, and then like the capture PC is gonna be up in the monitor with like OBS on it and chat, and I can just handle stuff there. Very
I mean,
easy.
that makes sense. Like I hear you say these and like that is not too dissimilar from what I use on my single PC setup, where one screen has my I'm monitoring the broadcast and chat, and the other one has the video game on it. This is all that is the most reasonable thing you've said here. Now, Rob, what are the monitors?
Well, so I am a little OLED pilled.
Oh my.
But
Yeah, of
also,
course you
like,
are.
I wanted to find a compromise between like a TV and a monitor, and that's kind of hard. Like OLED monitors are really expensive, but it wasn't quite what I'm looking for. But then, boy, howdy, did I find just the perfect device. A little display that was made just for me.
It's curved. It's OLED. Let me just look at this. I'm just believe those things to be true.
No, Ren.
No,
Oh, look, I'm fucking right. I'm right. I've never been wrong in my
Gotta
life.
be fucking.
I'm
Ren.
the smartest woman
Rob,
on the planet.
It's not
didn't.
just curved. It's not just curved.
It's not just
It
curved.
flexes.
It flexes. You motherfucker. I heard you talk
cannot
about
believe
this.
this.
You know what, Robert?
I cannot believe
The
you've
amount of
done
money we
this.
spent on this setup, we've become the baddies. like capitalism is bad. You just walked us through all this.
I'm gonna lay down. I'm gonna lay down.
Like that damn capitalism. Well, it sure allowed Rob to get a bunch of cool shit right here.
Jesus Christ, Rob.
So this
Patrick,
is
let's
a
be
normal
fair.
this is a normal size, right?
Patrick,
Yeah, it's
$500
it's a
off.
42-inch screen, Kato. And now here's the crucial
40
thing.
42?
No, Kato. I know. It's 42 fucking inches away from his face. Are you kidding me?
Hold on. That's because it is just the LG C2 TV screen. But it bends.
Rob, like when you're streaming stuff for work, why not just use the other like HDMI input in the device like I do? Just like play it there and use the other monitor.
I don't like this monitor as much.
Wait, so it's a regular 16:9 screen.
Yeah.
Thank God.
No,
It's not ultra-wide.
I'm
It's
thinking
not
about Kato.
ultra-wide.
Like throughout all of this, I was like, how can I make Kato's life better? And
This is great for me.
You could send him a check for 10 grand.
Send them a check for
Yeah, that'd be sick.
fucking $1,000.
Honestly.
You know, feel like if that's what's in front of you, I got
do you have any
I
idea
got
the
an
interest
answer
rate
for you.
that the credit card company charges on advances like that? So there's some other features though. So because the LG C2 42, like that's not that expensive, but that's just a regular old TV screen. It doesn't bend, doesn't flex, and crucially, it doesn't come with a little fancy stand that has all sorts of adjustable stuff, so you can tilt it and turn it like a monitor without having to drill into your freshly painted walls and like really make commitments about where this thing is going to live and sit. And while they were back there building this little stand, those wizards at LG put in bias lighting.
That's great. Good for them.
What?
Yeah.
What are you saying to me?
What does that mean?
Oh, it'll glow.
Cool.
It's
In
got
ways that are
gamer
complementary.
LEDs.
See,
Jesus.
Cool. It glows. Yeah, it glows, Rob. Is the glow cool for your eyes? Are you going to get the
Yes.
sequel to Eye
It
Strain?
helps your
Great,
eyes. No, it
cool.
goes behind it to
Great.
balance
see,
out,
Kato, see, there's
Right.
a logic to it.
Yes.
There is, unfortunately,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's
yeah.
also not necessary.
Cool.
You could turn on a
cool.
light near your in your room, and that'll help as well.
So
Wait, Rob, don't you have LEDs pointing at your face right now to keep you lit? Don't you already have lighting directly behind your monitor?
that's not what bias lighting is doing.
Oh, yeah,
The-
expound.
So you've seen this. So it's like when you're playing like a video game and it's got like, the screen has a color scheme as you're playing through it. Bias lighting will throw in complementary backlighting that will both like pleasingly enhance the contrast while reducing eye strain from you looking at the screen. And so your room will, as you play a game, will just like flicker with splashes and whirls of color that are sort of referring to the action on the screen of the game you're playing.
It
I
looks
too.
like
I
car
too was
underlight. Looks like car underlighting for a fucking PC monitor.
But you have to imagine it casting a therapeutic glow.
Yeah.
Right. I can see the therapeutic glow.
Yeah.
I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but now it's over. Like the darkness is lifted. All the stuff will be so this thing's really backordered and it's kind of hard to get, and I gave these people some money and they haven't called me in like the weeks
Sorry.
to put my order in.
Sorry. Whoa,
gave someone these people.
Stepping it back.
No, it's
stepping
a
it back.
respectable business.
Who did you give this
I'm sure
money
it's
to? Who did you give this money to? Is it not the website you linked to us?
No, I did not buy it from the manufacturer. I bought it from a local business.
Okay.
But anyway, when I asked about the status of the order, they didn't call me back. But I'm sure it's fine. I'll call them again soon.
You didn't do this in person?
No, I just I spoke my credit card number over the phone, and
And Rob,
they took it, and the charge went through.
quick question. Now, did you get the $499.01 off
you
currently
betcha.
listed on the LG website?
Yeah, of course.
So you paid.
That's good.
So you paid the number listed on the LG website for this device.
Yeah.
That's about what my PC cost 10 years ago.
We're in the honesty room, Rob. I just want to clarify that the number on this website is what you spoke into the credit card on your phone. Sorry, your phone on
For TVs that you can buy for like TVs have never been cheaper.
Yeah. Also, how far away from your face is this going to be?
It's going to be about, you look at the uplift screen here. I think it's going to be like 30 inches. It's going to be pretty close. Good thing it's going to flex. Yeah.
There's pictures of gamers here sitting like inches from this thing, and I'm like, why? Why do you do this to yourself?
Classic Rob's acne right here.
Yeah, this is Rob. This is Rob.
Okay, that is not me. That is not me. Arm behind the monitor? Absolutely not. No.
Look at how close Rob is there, leaning into his strategy games. Leaning back to listen to music.
Trying to maximize the number of pixels his eyes are taking in at one moment in time so he can get those crisp clicks on his fucking resources.
Getting those APIs up. Hey, is that Dota?
No one has ever clicked a tooltip so accurately in their life.
So look. It was a difficult road I walked. And I understand that like people have doubts about like is this needless indulgence?
It's okay. Our company is in great shape, Rob. I think you actually made some quality financial decisions this week.
Fuck.
It's true.
It's cool. It's
That's
cool
true.
here.
Look, it just needs to hold together.
Hey, wait. Hey, Rob. Wait. Okay. Let me just read a completely unrelated message from a chat between Rob Zachney and I. Do you have any candles line budget items? Let me see when that message was sent. Rob Zachney asked me this question. 3/15/2023. Are there any candles line budget items? To which I said, no.
You put it that way, the bias lighting kind of sounds like candles.
Yeah, Rob.
That's what's causing the price of this TV to be so high.
I was like, this is an irrational. I know this is an irrational purchase,
Right.
but I like this device. Like I was like, every time I was like, I don't need this device.
It'll go right next to your Surface.
Hey, Rob, can I have your Surface?
Wow. I'm sorry. I actually really hurt Rob on that one.
He's done.
Rob,
He's out.
Rob,
He's gone.
My Surface got
killed
stolen.
Rob.
I want to
Can I
check
have
and make sure
yours?
Rob has still got a pulse.
Oh my god.
Oh no.
My god,
R.I.P.
he is broken in half.
I need to make a little confession about the Surface. And it really, actually, Patrick, this was me last night. It really hit me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So remember, I bought the Surface right as they discontinued that version of the Surface and replaced it with a newer version.
Yes, famously bad time to buy a Surface.
And I was like, I love this thing. It's great. It's like the perfected version of this Surface. And there's a lot of things I like about it. I still use the Surface. It's been a great laptop. I was going to say lapdog, but it's been a great laptop. No, actually, that's the problem. It's been a good portable PC. It's been a decent tablet and all that stuff. But the little kickstand, when you're trying to sit there and you're watching sports, you're trying to watch TV, and you're trying to do work, you like to sit with your legs crossed or something. Mm-hmm. Or you just like are sitting your feet flat on the floor. That little kickstand sucks to sort of like balance the little.
They're all even the one that you were impressed by, that like Apple one on the iPad, like they're not really meant. Like,
yeah, but I think
they function poorly
the very
on a
next
lap.
build of the Surface like basically gave it a proper laptop mode.
Mm.
Like literally, I think the one they released months later was like it has all the convenience, and then also it just works like a laptop and sits like a normal ass laptop in your lap. Mm-hmm. And I'm gonna be honest here, because I didn't want to admit that like there were flaws with the Surface. I didn't want to face this truth, but I did have to admit to myself at a certain point that it's like I was going out of my way to avoid using it as a laptop at moments when I really wanted a laptop. Like there were so many moments where I was like, I would love to like sit here on the couch, do a little work while watching TV. And then I would justify like, I'll just, when I want to work, I go to the kitchen table. That's just as good. I can watch the screen from there. Yeah. I hate that little kickstand.
Problems for another day. You can't solve everything at once.
No.
Eventually you hit a max on your credit card.
Eventually you do hit that. But when that day comes and the sheriff's department kicks down the door to reclaim some of these possessions,
Jesus.
They will.
This is why Rob shifted their setup, so we see there's a door right behind you. Like we'll be able to see that happen in real time.
They're not coming through that door. That's that's gonna be tough. That's pretty tough to break down. It'll be the door downstairs, but I got a clear sight line in the stairwell. Post up here.
But you can get up that. You can get out that door, right? From inside. That's your means of egress.
Yeah, exactly. I can just like. Now I won't be able to bring everything with me, but I think I'll bring the Corsair. I'll be running down the street with the Corsair Christ. Under my arm.
Okay. You know what? I know we've had complicated feelings about AI art, but is it possible that one could generate an image of Rob running from a sheriff's department holding a Corsair PC?
We don't need AI art. We don't need that. I
need that.
People follow us.
I gotta see if I can. I'm sorry. Even I haven't pushed the line. I need to see if I can get that generated.
Well, while you examine that, why don't we get into at least some of the games we've been playing? We'll take a break here real quickly, because obviously there's a lot to catch up on with the various mistakes I've made with my life. But before we, maybe to shift topics a little bit and talk about like getting right with nature and sort of what's degrowth, that sort of thing. Ren, you've been playing a bit of Terra Nil. What can you tell us about it?
So Terra Nil is a I think pretty interesting little strategy game that is about environmental restoration and kind of going into devastated ecosystems and trying to like rebuild them through technology that to me borders on magical thinking.
This is just like my apartment.
It's just like Rob's apartment, right down to the belief that purchasing a new piece of technology will be able to finally dig you out of the miles deep hole you found yourself in terms of like, poor structures and like, misthought out strategies for kind of building your life, right? And Terra Nil picks up in the wasteland, much like a crawl space underneath your stairs after years and years of environmental neglect, and has you, the player, placing objects in an environment to effectively do terraforming to rehabilitate a bunch of environments. Each ecosystem has like specific things that it is built around. So for example, the first environment you're in is entirely built around humidity. If you keep the humidity right and you like put all the plants back, you're good. But it gets more complex as it goes on. So for example, in the polar environment, which I'm fucking with right now, you have to deal with the toxicity of the surrounding environment, the average temperature in the region, and also the humidity. And like balancing these things allows the environment to ideally come back to its best. The cool thing about this is that, you're doing your standard like placing objects to like get resources, or in this case, create resources in an environment. And then once you have finished terraforming, you then have to go back through in reverse and recycle everything to kind of take away all of the human-made objects in the environment and reset it back to the way it was before any ecological devastation fell upon it. And it is honestly like a really clever little strategy game.
So what is, because like I feel like when I've encountered city builders that have tried to be a bit more, so they've been more traditional city builders that try to get at this concept of like, try and have a bit more what's called like a solar punk vision or things like that. But a lot of times they end up falling into this trap of like, we have basically taken the same progress curves that exist in every other city builder you've ever played, but now we just given them like green names, right? Where it's like, okay, well, like, here you'll build wind farm version 3, and it will, hey, what do you know? The wind farm version 3 generates way more power than like, coal plant version 3. So like I'll build the wind farm, and then we power up all the same old shit, and it's all the same. Like how is this sort of dodging that trap?
So there is only one power source per region. So it's not like you are upgrading better versions of, there is no upgrading, right? You're not like putting down a thing and then being like, I would like a more efficient X, Y, or Z. Instead, it is that you are being like, okay, I'm going to place down a windmill, and this windmill can support, X number of things. And it's much more like, how can I place objects in such an order that I am shaping the environment in this particular way? So like first you go, you put down a windmill, and the windmill generates power, and then you put down a toxin scrubber, and the toxin scrubber cleans the soil around it and allows you to put down an irrigator, and then the irrigator applies water to everything. Then if you put a thing on the irrigator, that water then turns into that like plant area you've created of like grass turns into a wetlands, for example, right?
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah. So it's a lot of like second and third order like stuff happening.
Yes, sometimes even like fourth. So for example, in the screenshot I've just sent, there is a jungle, like a forested like a rainforest with a canopy, a mangrove, like a field of mangroves, and then a more traditional forest. And so the way, for example, that you get a mangrove like forest is that you put down a toxin scrubber, clean the environment, then put down an irrigator. The irrigator then puts plant matter throughout. You turn the irrigator into I forget what the thing is called, but it makes it a wetlands. And then finally you put down a fourth object, which turns the wetlands and like gives them the correct climate for mangroves to grow. And the mangrove biome and the wetlands biome are considered two different things. And the end of the goal is to build the environment in such a way that the animals that used to live there are able to return to a habitat that resembles the one that they had originally. So, for example, like an otter would need, I think let's go with beavers. Beavers need to be near a river and near a forest. Bears need to be on a hill in a forest and in a forest that has active beehives, which are used to grow flowers. And they need those three things. And so you're trying to, basically it's like this multi-layered and multi-step approach to rebuilding an environment from scratch. And then once you've finished and found like selected areas when the game is like, yes, animals could live here, that's when you start the recycling process and then try to do all of this in reverse and do like the correct order of operations to pull everything out without collapsing the environment again.
Oh, that's also interesting.
Yes.
Okay,
and like,
so there's kind of like a tools down, like now let this thing run.
Yes.
Without intervention.
Right. And also like that is the end. And also you have to have built your resource networks in such a way where things are accessible. So, for example, in like one region, the recycling system is built on waterways. And so you have to maintain the waterways and keep clear routes to everything in such a way that like your recycling drones won't get stuck pathing through an environment that you accidentally disassembled and recycled too early, and in doing so lost like an essential piece of infrastructure that would allow your recycling drone to get to location like Y or Z.
Now, having known some people who've tried to do things similar, right? Like some friends of MK's family were trying to do a thing where it's like, we're going to like, they built their retirement home, etc. There's like her mom's friends, and they're like, we want it to be a good home for pollinators.
Yeah.
In my view, it ended up not being an amazing home for pollinators, but it did turn into a good home for a lot of other critters maybe you didn't necessarily want around your house. And I'm curious, does this game have anything where it's like, if you get the balance a little bit right, can you like end up with a distorted ecosystem where it kind of works, but it's like kind of not what you're going for?
No, and this is part of the problem that I have with Terra Nil at the end of the day, is that this is a game that I think its heart is very much in the right place. But it is a game that, through its structure, so clearly believes that we have the ability to fix things. And that, like, we are the ones who should be able to fix things, as opposed to looking at the shit we fucked up and being like, okay, we have fucked this up so deeply that we should let this environment restore itself naturally over time. Which is, like, oftentimes the actual answer to like severe environmental damage. It is that like environments are very good at reestablishing themselves. And this is a game that believes wholeheartedly that it is people's like not only responsibility, but like there's a phrase the game uses at the end where it's like, once we leave and recycle everything, we return the land to the animals who are the new stewards of this environment. And that like language of stewardship and the idea that like there is still a we are the masters of the earth vibe going on here, and like at the core of the gameplay systems in such a way that like I don't think this is a game that is like convinced that you can fuck things up like that. I mean, you can fuck things up a little bit in terms of like really throwing an environment's like climate out of whack by like, for example, one of the other things you have to do is balance climate. And so, for example, a thing that you can do is burn an area of vegetation and raise the average temperature for an area, or, you know, put in a humidifier that raises the humidity in a region. And like, if you fuck that stuff up, the game will be like, hey, you have like caused mass thunderstorms in this region. But I do think that like, this is a game that imagines environments and our ability to restore them as predictable in a way that I do not think is particularly fair to the world we actually live in. I think it's a really well-made game, the thesis of which is based on like some like very techno fetishist magical thinking about our ability to just like technology in this game is magic. It is just straight up like we can wizard our way out of the devastation that we have wrought. And like, I think its heart's in it. His heart is very much in the right place, but I am unsure if it like really comes together for me as like a game with something to say, as opposed to just like a really excellent little strategy game that I think is like has some like really clever design elements to it.
I will say that still sounds really interesting, as opposed to like, how do I get the yuppies to move in, which is the arc a lot of us end up on in games of a similar nature. But I know you have a heart out. Yeah. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, it's a cool game. I think it's like worth your time and like worth people like checking out, especially because of like the puzzles are fun. Looking at an environment and trying to be like, okay, right, I know that for this region, I have to have a forest on a hill. How can I make this forest? How can I turn this hill that doesn't have any trees around it into a forest is like a really cool process. So yeah. Those are my thoughts on Terra Nil.
This game sounds just like me kitting out my office.
It's just like that, Rob.
Bears love bias lighting.
Mm-hmm. They do.
That's how you create a nourishing, restorative environment for them. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we are going to take a quick break here, and Ren is going to go out and take care of some business. But remember, Waypoint Plus listeners get this podcast ad-free. So you can learn more at waypointplus.com and see how you can fill this break with nothing but cool tunes. And we're back. So there's some other games I wanted to hit before we moved on to questions. Patrick, I saw that you and Kato played a few games last week, but I wanted to ask you about one. I may not get the pronunciation right here. Chia?
Just lop off the T.
Chia?
Yeah.
Chia.
Yeah, like a chia pet. But it was an admirable attempt. Yeah, we streamed a little bit of this last week, in addition to. That was Minecraft Day, right, Kato?
That was Minecraft
Day. A series of 101s.
Yeah.
For myself.
Patrick asked me a bunch of questions on stream.
And
everything goes smoothly. Yeah.
Yeah, one for me, one for my child. We checked out. It's to be extremely productive, sort of an indie Breath of the Wild, a game in which you're playing. This kid who's she grows up off of, I forget exactly where, I can look up the exact location but it's inspired by an actual region, but she kind of grows up with her dad in this little island on their own. Her dad gets kidnapped, and then you have to go and kind of track him down. And it's a game where it's so similar to Breath of the Wild, right? You've got stamina meters for climbing things, you've got a glider in order to kind of go between points. The thing that kind of differentiates it, which I think is shown really well in the 30 minutes or so we played, is this ability to it's soul jump into both objects and animals. Now, is the game real specific about why do some things have a soul that you can bond to and others don't? This rock got a soul.
Yeah.
This deer got a soul. Why these trees? They don't have souls.
No.
But
this
that's all just hand.
This lamp has a soul.
Well, that's true. You could go into a fire lamp that you can explode, so you can kill the paper enemies.
This is a lot like a child selective anthropomorphization of things, where it's this object is my friend, these other things are furniture.
Exactly. And so it's a game where it has enormously wide spaces of geography that you're trying to cover. It has a really cool sailing system where I know this seems really basic, but usually when you're playing games where you're piloting a boat that has more arcadey controls, it's you push forward on the stick and that just invents some magic wind that pushes you forward. And that still sort of exists here, but you have to actually press a button, go to a different part of the boat, and that part of the boat determines how much wind is coming at the boat, and then you have to click out and go to another part of the boat that then you use to steer. And it's just a little layer of complexity that I think is reflective of a real kind of layer of nuance and just really interesting detail to a game that, if you heard on the surface why an independent studio trying to do a Breath of the Wild style game, the ambition comes with a lot of rough around the edges, but I find the game to be really heartwarming, endearing. You get a classic scene where the villain has a bunch of people in a cage, uses some magic to summon a little baby, not even a toddler, a little baby, and it summons it over like it's using the Force, and it opens its mouth and then it eats the baby. Yeah. Just classic shit. What you're just here for.
What could be more classical than a powerful, godlike father figure devouring his children?
Exactly. It's fun. I think I mentioned this on the stream, but I had requested a code for it, and I was like, oh, this seems like a game that might be fun to play with my daughter. And the PR person responded and goes how old's your kid? I was like, well, I watched the trailer. They're fine. They watch Gremlins and Jurassic Park. This doesn't seem beyond that. And they're like, here's a link. You might want to look at a couple of things before you do that.
My parents let me watch Sleeping Beauty, and I still don't know if that was a good call at age 6 or 7.
it's a lot of the flow of this game is like jumping between different like you might use a rock to give you some momentum that you jump out of, that then you go into a tree, and the trees in this game you can push back and forth that allowed you like momentum into the air. Maybe once you're in the air you see a bird and then you jump to that bird, and that allows you to traverse an extraordinary length across like these different land masses that you're exploring. And it's just really charming and interesting. It has like please write in if you can think of other examples, but Kato and I were kind of racking our brains to think of one. This game has a number of really good accessibility features. So the tweaks that you would want in order to make the game more palatable and playable, depending on like how much you want to interact with various parts of the gameplay elements, to the point that it has an actual skip gameplay option, where like there was a sequence where when we came into the stream, I was in an area that was very plot centric, and it's not really what I wanted to show for the stream because it wasn't like the main thrust of the game. I was like, shoot, like how can I just skip to get back to the big islands and oceans so I can show people that? And you just hit pause, and it's like, you want to skip this gameplay? And I was like, I guess. And it's like, skip, go to the cutscene, and then it's like gameplay again. And I was like, well, that's still not the island. Skip, and it's like it warns you. It says like, hey, you might miss out on important story beats. You might miss out on explanations of gameplay. But if you just want to be dropped at the next area, we'll just do it for you. And it's a really fascinating, kind of low friction approach to, I don't know, like if you're in a particular, how many times have you been in a game with like a crappy stealth sequence? And it's like, you know what? No one is benefiting from actually finishing this. If I could just hit a button, it was like, can I just go to the end of this? There are times in my life, maybe not this game's a little more on the simpler end, but if you think about it as a game that might be played by a younger crowd, I could definitely see an example where, and also because the gameplay is a little rougher on the edge. It's like, I don't know, maybe I'm just not liking this sequence, and I just get me to the next beat. So it's like for that and many other reasons, including how beautiful it is. It is just utterly gorgeous to look at. Like moments where you get to the top of these peaks is frankly just kind of breathtaking. And so it's a game that I had not heard of, hadn't given a lot of thought to, but I definitely would recommend if you're looking to scratch, a little bit of an itch before we get to, Tears of the Kingdom in, that's the end of May, right? So about a little under 2 months time before that drops. This is absolutely going to give you a kind of a little bit of that feel, even if it, has different aims. There's no combat. I mean, there is, but it's not that type of game. It is much more about exploring and kind of guiding around. And for that, it does a really great job.
Well, that sounds pretty cool, and also a little bit gnarly in places.
It is, but you know what? I miss shit like that. I mean, like my youngest has been very into watching Gremlins 2 for whatever reason. That just sort of like scrolled across a Plex, and she's like, "I want to watch that." And I was like, "All right."
Does that have the cute little gremlins on it? Like, it was just like,
yeah, it has like a hand, and she's like, "I think the poster for Gremlins 2." Is because that one takes place in like the high rise. It's like the whole kind of satire of cable network news, like is like kind of what runs throughout that one. Gremlins 2 is fantastic. I don't know. There's just something about the art that captured, and I was like, all right, we'll watch it. And with my kids, absent something being totally out of bounds, I tend to let my kids watch something, and then you tell me you're scared, and we'll stop watching it. And she got very into Gremlins 2. Very confused when the one had there's the sexy gremlin though. I'm not sure if you remember that one. There's the spider gremlin. There's also the gremlin with like.
I have never seen a Gremlins movie.
Really?
I heard bad things happen to the cute little gremlins, and I was like, I don't know if I want to
that's
that.
Mogwai. Mogwai, that's the cute little furball you're thinking of. Gremlins are the byproduct of a Mogwai getting wet after midnight, and then you get the gremlins you want to be destroyed. They're bad. They're killing people. The gremlins are bad. Little Mogwai though. That's the one you're trying to.
Oh my god!
Yeah, because I think they're all cute little Furby little fuckers.
No.
There's just one. There's just one of those.
Oh, okay.
Gremlins are all the
I never understood. I thought the whole thing was like, okay, the cute little furry creatures are like murderous, evil shitheads.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
don't know if
There
I
you
wanna-
go. Yeah. So
but
yeah,
it's
this
not
poster
quite-
that Kato has shared gives you the general vibe. That is
The Gremlins.
that is a gnarly poster.
Yeah,
that you
I don't
have
know.
posted here.
Yeah.
God,
I don't think
like
that's
it. I don't
official.
like it.
I think that's some fan art there. But it gets the point across. Gremlins are the evil ones. The cute one is.
And
not
it was just all the point I was making there was, you know what, kids. The edges are sanded off of too much kids content is what I will say. You can find it. There is like some decent, but what used to pass for PG-13 when we were growing up, we've gone too far is what I'll say. Like the stuff being like a little bit gnarlier, like is healthy for kids sometimes. They should be a little shocked every once in a while when they watch their television.
On the other hand, I think about the fact that way too young, I somehow encountered both The Godfather and Martin Scorsese's Casino.
Well, I don't.
And
Rob,
for the rest
the most
of
Rob answer, like, so like I watched E.T. a little younger than other kids, and when he almost dies in the movie, that really freaked me out, and I don't know that I needed to see that. Casino. What do you mean? How do you see the Casino and The Godfather too early? Like flicking through HBO?
No, my dad would he taught
sat you down to show it to you?
So no, he just didn't turn it off while he was watching it. And so I
okay.
came and I watched a fair bit of it.
All right, okay.
But I became convinced that like any movie with a certain vibe, at any moment, you didn't know when or why or like how, someone would die in a car bombing. And to this day, anytime there's like any sort of like mafia adjacent, crime adjacent movie, there is like a low like background radiation level of like anxiety and terror I have watching it because I'm like, oh my God, they're gonna drive somewhere. Oh my God, here we fucking go. I knew it. I knew it. That car's gonna explode. Yeah.
Patrick,
Imagine my
poster?
shock when I finally watched Casino for real while I had COVID and discovered that De Niro, even though they show him getting blown up in the opening sequence, that's a fake out and he survives that initial car bombing.
Is this the poster?
Yes, Kato, this is the poster.
This is very amusing to me that this would attract your child's attention for some reason. Because all the signifiers here are like,
oh, that's
things
giving
I
Boss
wouldn't...
Baby vibes.
Yeah, naturally.
Yeah.
Seen Boss Baby.
Yeah.
That movie's all right. There were shitty child fare that you could watch,
but not as good as people made it out to be.
Did you watch Boss Baby?
Yeah, I watched Boss Baby. It was fun.
I still haven't seen the Boss. Do we have to do the next My Turn on
My Turn?
Boss Baby?
Boss Baby. Yeah. No. I would have told you that like it'd be the kind of movie that if you got stuck watching it with like a niece or nephew, like you could have a worse way to spend 90 minutes. But I would. Sure. It's not an animated film that I would have gone out of my way to recommend to people. That is for sure.
Whereas like Paddington lived up to the hype. Like people were like the Paddington movies are like really special.
Yeah,
and come on. I'm like,
we have not watched those with my kids
yet.
yet. But I'm waiting because I wanted them to get old enough that I don't want to watch it in 15-minute chunks. I was like, when I sit down with my oldest, I want to watch it. I've heard Paddington 2 is even better than the first and is spectacular. Something about a jail sequence, like I've heard many times, is unbelievable in Paddington 2. But I have not seen those movies yet. But I'm genuinely excited to see them sometime. So it's my turn, Paddington. That's what I want. No Boss Baby. We can watch Paddington though.
Yeah.
Now I just need to figure out how to connect up Mandy to Paddington. We'll figure it out, Simon. Man, I just realized I did not eat breakfast today.
Wow.
Good thing I have this granola Imperial Stout.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it's
this podcast is just the entire Rob Zachney arc. Like
keep it crunchy.
It's from Omegang. It is their OMG series, and it's 8% alcohol by volume. This hearty granola stout is the perfect companion for your next outdoor. Well, nope. For your next outdoor adventure. The indoors are the new outdoors. Elaborate and flavorful, keenly suggestive of the balanced complexity of Mother Nature. Be prepared to be elevated to chocolate foam-capped mountainous heights. Only Patrick Greer to share this with. This is the sort of beer that you'd like leave the table, and I got us a picture of the granola stout.
You did do that once. So you like, do you have any preference on beer? And I was like, just nothing particularly dark. Came back from the bathroom.
No. You said
beer.
No stouts, so I got a black lager.
You knew what the fuck you were doing.
I didn't. I was being very literal. I was innocent. at that moment.
Oatmeal stouts are a thing. So like this is, one step removed, right? Granola, oatmeal, both things that I don't know where I was going.
Yeah, I mean,
with
there's
that.
something that's like oats and granola. Like there's both there's grains involved and sugar and sweets.
Yeah.
Patrick, you also have another game here, Storyteller. Can you tell us a little bit about Storyteller?
Yeah, we mentioned it briefly on the last podcast where we had an interview with the game's designer. So hopefully people enjoyed that chat. It was a delight talking to them. That game has since launched. I have played most of the game now. Storyteller is a game in which essentially, like, imagine comic book panels at the top, and at the bottom you have different characters, like let's say like thief or prince or knight, and then different settings like wedding, execution, revive, cemetery, and then at the top is a description of a scenario. And what you are supposed to then do is use these characters and settings to enact that scenario. So let's say it's like, like knight kills queen, right? And it's like there's a kidnap setting. So it's like, then you place the knight on the left, and you place the queen on in the kidnapping section, and then like he can take the throne in like the throne room, and like that's how you end up solving it. And the game remixes these ideas thematically based on different chapters in a book. So it's like frequently what's happening is like the first section is teaching you the basic rhythms of what are going to be more complex puzzles. Like one of them involves a butler murdering like the duke that he's working for. And then the more complex version of that is like, how can you get the detective to discover that that he committed the murder? Another one is like, how can you get the detective discover that he committed the murder while like being observed? And like there are like layers to these different sort of puzzles. It's really delightful. I really enjoy the time I spent with it. It is, I think, kind of when you and I played it last summer, I definitely had the impression that maybe there would be a little more creativity involved in terms of how the player arrives at their solutions, and that these are like puzzles to solve, but like the band between like what it's asking of you and how you get there would be a little wider than what actually is in the game, or at least how I've played it has felt very much. It's never like I'm trying to jam in a hyper specific solution, but it's specific enough that there are times that I wish the game allowed the player to, like, the title of the game, Storyteller, certainly seems to give an implication that you'll be doing some storytelling. Yeah. And yes, there are stories being told as a result of solving these puzzles, but there's not a whole lot of creativity involved in accomplishing that process. And that is not necessarily a fault as much as I actually think when I've played like 70% of the game according to the menu, and it mostly seems like this establishes like a really interesting but like limited possibility space for what is possible given the tools they have here. And that I'm like really excited if they get an opportunity to make another one of these where they were able to expand that band out a little bit, because it's very satisfying to do. Yeah. But there are definitely times, especially as the game goes on, where and again, this is my own like aversion to puzzles in general, like where I enjoy a puzzle up until the point that I no longer am, which I know seems like a pretty like weird and arbitrary decision, but is that I like if I run into a brick wall in terms of solving a puzzle, I tend to just sort of fall apart. Like, whereas like, time to like really think through how this is going to work. What are other ways that I could do it? It's like, no, now I'm not having fun and I'm going to look up a solution. Now that hasn't really happened here, but I can definitely see like as the game is getting more complex, it seems to be going in that direction where it's like, okay, now we're not just 3 panels, but we're 9 panels. And so like, where did I mix this one up? Like that kind of layer of like complicated puzzles is like getting right up to the edge of where, at least for my own personal like frustration limit with how puzzles tend to work. I haven't quite hit it, but I can feel myself getting awfully close. And maybe it never will, and that'll be a testament to the game itself that it manages to run that fine line. But very cute, very neat. I don't think it quite lives up to the potential of the tools in front of it, but I think there's a lot they could do with it if they took another whack.
Right. Especially in those early ones that we played on the demo, there were definitely
the Adam and Eve one is not even in the game. They got rid of that.
Wow.
And like, the Adam and Eve, there's like an Adam and Eve puzzle that was in the demo, unless it's later. But I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that that's just not present in this shipping version of the game. I remember one of the things that struck me about that sequence was just like how many different thing combinations it felt like we could do.
Yes.
It did feel a little more open-ended, and that it feels much more boxed in here. Like much more authorship felt from the puzzle designers here.
Right.
As opposed to, I think there could have been a really interesting ebb and flow in the game where you were going between ones that are more tightly wound to like figure out what are they asking me to do here, and other ones that are a little more like, hey, like just have some fun and you'll kind of arrive at a goal and you'll kind of tell the story in your own unique sort of way. I haven't felt that like level of freedom here, at least in what I've played of it.
I was curious because I linked one of the GIFs from the Steam page where it shows two different options, like one of the early ones. It seems like 3-panel, 3 characters, 2 scenes, love and death. Yeah. And you can kind of, they show it just being rearranged in like 2 different outcomes that both quote unquote solve it, and you can move on. But you're saying that essentially as they get longer and more complex, there tends to be fewer outs in a way, or like less of that variability that we
or I'm just not seeing them, right? Like that is entirely possible where like it's very natural as the complexity of the puzzle expands, you're also going to more hyperfixate on what you think is the solution to it and how to tailor that to happen, as opposed to thinking of a brand new entryway into the puzzle itself. And so at least I have found that it is a pretty narrow band in terms of what you can accomplish, but they're still very satisfying. Like it's just, I think I just got a different sense from playing that demo of how wide that spectrum would be. Right. And the finished product seems to be a little more tailored towards the clever idea that they came up with. And it's still fun to reverse engineer how you get there, because I mean, like it is really delightful to sometimes like one puzzle is just off, and it's just like you can hit a button to like literally take a panel you've already constructed and just move its place. And then to watch that kind of like it has a very satisfying animation when it solves, where it like kind of like swoops through and shows you like a little, like the characters then animate and like show you exactly how that sequence is playing out to enact the solution, and all of that is very good. I think it's just one of those situations where I really like what's here and just like would have loved for it to be a little bit more, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm not enjoying what's on the page itself.
So some quick hits from me. Pat, you'll be shocked to know that I did not play through Resident Evil 2 and 3 over.
You did send me a message though at one point, right? Something about Resident Evil? No?
Yeah, no, I'm playing through 2. I restarted.
Okay, so I did not imagine that. I was like, I was fairly sure.
Having a blast. Going through it a lot easier than I did the first time around. I think, I don't know, it's weird. It could just be King of Executive Function stuff, where it's like just easier for me to sort of see the path of the game and just execute on it. But I think the big thing is, I don't know, it feels like between when I first played it, right around when it came out, and now, I feel like the zombies are getting up more than they were. Like, I do not remember them just getting the fuck up every time I put them down.
They're much more aggressive Resident Evil 2. Yeah, because I think what you asked me was how much cleaning, like how many of these zombies do I need to kill?
It's because I was like, I don't think I can afford to keep like clearing these hallways.
You can't. Like a lot of Resident Evil 2 is, if you can luck into a room that has like a line of desks in the middle, and you can just kite or just be running around. What I remember end up doing in that game, the bulk of it, the best part of the game takes place in the police station, is just using the architecture of the police station to your advantage, where you have certain rooms that eventually, if you can just avoid entirely, like I remember there's an area in the police station where I think it's a library, and there's like
I'm
many
using
stairs.
the library to juke through, like rather than go around that long exterior hallway where it's just like one choke point after another. I'm always going through the library and up like to
Right.
get to that side of the police station, because otherwise there's that hallway of death where it's like it's single file. If 2 zombies show up, that is all your ammo.
Yes. And it certainly gets more complicated when, because you probably have not encountered Mr. X yet, right?
No, I just finished. So now I'm in the jails. So I just had that pretty shitty boss fight, I have to say, of like literally being chased in circles by a guy with a big eye growing out of his arm. And it was like, shoot the big glowing eye. And I was like, all right. I feel like I've been doing this for quite some time.
Evil.
I feel like I have been going around, and the encounter space was such that like there was one circle that like left you with all movement options. Otherwise, you get cornered somewhere. Yeah. So I just ran around, the same block of piping for like, I don't know, 10 minutes.
Lining up your shots, just slowly pelting him to death.
Waiting for the eye to reappear.
Yeah.
As he just sort of lumbered around. I was like, all right, like, could really do with this eye showing up. Maybe I'll try shooting him in the head. Maybe that'll bring the eye out. It did. But yeah, it went on for quite some time. But either way, though, what a good game. Having a blast.
It's great. Did you ever make it to the Mr. X part in your original playthrough?
I think I stopped just before that.
Okay, because that is where Mr. X, which is a character present in the original, but is, I think, like Resident Evil 4, it just came out, and Ren was going to talk about that, but, had to depart, so I'm sure we'll chime back in on that next week, because her and I are both going to be out this week. But I really like the Resident Evil 2 remake. I wrote as much, but I think something that is clearer to me now as I spend more time with it and, think about you playing Resident Evil 2. And I adore the Resident Evil 2 remake. I think it is like a terrific accomplishment. And part of why I think it's terrific is because Resident Evil 2 had enough distance when it was being remade that they could actually do the part of like there's a reimagination of what is that game.
Yeah.
Resident Evil 4, despite being, 20 years old or whatever, like it's a modern game. Like you go and play that game now. Kyle, you just did this, right?
Yeah.
Like there are plenty of quality of life, control scheme things that you can tell that it's a game from a different era. But like broadly, like those bones are like really good. Like that game is still fantastic. And what they ended up doing in the remake is there's not a lot of reimagining. It's updating. It's cleaning it up. It's like polishing it to an nth degree. But it's not reimagining, and part of what's so great about Resident Evil 2 is they were given license by that. Yeah. Resident Evil 2 looking like an ancient game. There's less hangups and also just fewer people to complain if they decide to just change how there's many like basic elements of the game work outside of like the general plot structure and the layout.
Though, Patrick, I will say this, because Resident Evil 2 originally was a lot more like Resident Evil 1, right? Where it's like you're going to have sort of your fixed camera angle positions, and it's that sort of combat. Because here's the thing I hadn't done when I played a little bit of Resident Evil 2. I had not played Resident Evil 1 with you by that point.
Right.
And so I'm sitting here, and there's a lot of places now where I feel like, oh, this space would really be an amazing Resident Evil 1 style space, but it actually feels a little cramped and almost overly simplified for these movement controls. In a way that, like, I'm having a blast. It's got great atmosphere. Like, it's a tremendous remake. But I am sitting there being like, I can see the places where, like, there's foundations of a very different sort of game here. And in some ways, it feels like those foundations are still more appropriate to that style of game. And I'm like, maybe I should be playing original Resident Evil 2.
As someone that has played, like, with Resident Evil 4, I can go either way. I think the update is fantastic, but I think you could play, one of the like recent re-releases of Resident Evil 4 and have an incredible time. I think Resident Evil 2 is harder to, like, you can appreciate it. You'd have fun with it, Rob, but I think the remake is giving you a closer approximation of what it was like to play that game at the time, right? Like I think Resident Evil 2 is still, the original is still like eminently playable, but it feels old. And I think that's part of what I found so brilliant about that update was that it runs that fine line. And Resident Evil 4's remake mostly is closer to feeling like it's not just a fidelity update, but it's I almost wish they had been given more license to look, if you're going to do this, like really put your own spin on it. Like find your own creativity in this world. The original still exists, and Capcom's not pretending it doesn't. And that's great. I love that you can still go buy that original game on any platform that you want to. And it'll feel good and it'll run well. But like they didn't really give themselves, or Capcom didn't allow that team, which is the same team that did the Resident Evil 2 remake. Like they feel more constrained creatively here. And like at this point, I'm really hoping if they move on to like a Code Veronica, a game that would require a lot of like creative reinterpretation to make that work, I really would like that team to get a chance to make their own original Resident Evil game. Like that creative team has so many cool ideas, and I'd love to see them unshackled from like nostalgic expectations. It's like, look, find some other like junior members to go work on these like series of remakes that the studio is clearly working through, and we're getting one more. Resident Evil 7, 8, 9 are supposed to be a trilogy of games, so we'll get another one of those in the next couple of years as well. But I just think that team has earned the right to, I think, try and reduce some of that tension you're getting at, Rob, which is like when you are working with that framework, even if you're giving yourself a lot of license to reimagine how it works, it's still that original framework, and that's going to feel a little odd at times.
When was the last time you touched 4, Patrick? The original?
Well, when I was supposed to do that stream before my kid got sick,
Right.
That was I played a little bit of the Oculus VR remake, so I probably played like 2 hours of that one. But in terms of like playing Resident Evil 4, I mean, I don't think I've played it since, I don't know, some older re-release. So like, I mean, at least 10, 15 years probably.
Because it seems like for the most part you're right about like at least environmentally, and like it's a lot of the same things with like new coats of paint. But the way I had forgotten that this game, you can't move while you're aiming in this game.
No.
I had forgotten that holding the aim button for the knife and that you hit the A button to shoot. And it's not a left trigger, right trigger situation. The ways that you interact with this game are so specific that it feels like that's the most drastic change right now. And I've actually seen a few people kind of, and I didn't get our hands on the new one, so I'm not 100% sure how this plays out, but that there has been something changed where there's like parries now. Did you hit that in the new one? It feels like
so you can use the knife to parry basically any basic attack from an enemy, and that will, I think, mostly minimize the damage that comes in and then damages your knife, which it's repairable. There are both throwaway knives that like break and then disappear, and you have to collect or buy more. Or your main knife can be repaired and upgraded at the merchant. So like that parry system does not exist in the original. The closest you get to that is, if you can't really do it on the GameCube version, but I think you mentioned this kind of talking about the Wii version where like you could, shoot an axe, a thrown axe out of the air. Like the aiming is so slow and unwieldy. Yeah. In the original, that would be, I'm sure it's technically possible.
It is.
But
I did it on accident. It is definitely one of those things that you don't mean to do, but then a bullet hits an axe mid path, and you're like, "Oh shit, that's awesome! I hope that happens again." But like
the Easter egg that was going around this morning, where in New Game Plus in the new Resident Evil 4, you can start the game with a sniper rifle, and if you go up to the top of one of the buildings in the village area and look at the skybox in a very specific direction, you can see the bell that ends that encounter, and if you shoot it with the sniper rifle, you can trigger the bell and end the village encounter immediately. Which is, and you can't do it I doubt you can do it with the pistol. I think you have to have this
the sniper
post-game weapon, but it's super cool.
That is very good. But honestly, just like, I don't know, even like with the modern Resident, like the set like 7 and stuff, I don't think they leaned in as hard into, like, a parry is wild to me. The fact that there's a parry in a Resident Evil game, like the way you play that game is you take a couple pot shots and then you fucking run, right? It's about mitigating like both ammo usage and like these like waves of enemies that come at you, and like a lot of that is just
It's
kiting.
all crowd control.
It's all crowd control.
That's all RE4 is defined by. Yeah.
And it's just like that felt like such a drastic change that I feel like that's the kind of thing that's where they were looking to make changes because it was so modern. It's like just the combat flow becoming even more action oriented. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like I'm really curious to get my hands on it too, because it feels like if it's required, right? If it's like this is the new combat flow, it feels like more drastic of a change in the ways that RE controls than adding non-tank controls to 1, for example. I don't know, because you still kind of are doing the same sort of. Yeah,
I don't parry that much.
Okay,
like parry is like an emergency. Like I fucked up.
Right,
I'm backed into a corner.
It definitely,
sort of the way.
Yeah,
so like when you kneecap somebody and then that triggers.
Which you can't do the kneecap anymore, does it? Like this is the other thing I've heard is that people.
No, you can't. No, that's like still 100% the flow of playing Resident Evil 4 is like. You kneecap him and then you roundhouse kick him. Yes,
and then
that's how you're like
swipe your knife a million times while they're on the ground.
Yeah, no, that is still 100%. Like they have not gotten rid of that. That is definitely what you are doing in the update as well. And it's just like because when you're playing that game, you kind of you can hit them with like 2 pistol shots, they kneecap, you get the melee, and that will often kind of like disperse a couple of enemies in front of you and like give you a little bit of breathing room. Essentially, the parry is another version of that, which is like, okay, if that didn't work and a guy still encroaches on you, you can hit L1 and like parry them away and kind of push them back. And it's all about giving you space in crowd control. And that's just like another added technique. If I have not found myself, it's one of those things that I used a handful of times when it was introduced. And now, most of the way through the game, like I have not I think I used it a couple of times.
It did feel like Ren had to do it a lot but I forgot she chose some ridiculous.
She's playing on a harder difficulty.
She picked some ridiculous hardest mode or some shit. I don't remember what was going on there.
Choice. That was a great choice for the conceit of that stream. So the other thing, just to touch on really briefly, I played a lot of the Great War Western Front. I talked about this previously on the podcast. It's sort of a hybrid, like strategic level war game about World War One. But then the tactical battles are RTS style. It's made by Petroglyph Studio, and like I enjoyed it. I wrote a review on the site. You should check it out. The thing I would sort of add to it is that like while I liked it, I do think that one of the things this game was sort of trying to tackle is capturing that even though World War One is a lot of stalemate, to try and break the stalemate, every side in the war is like frantically trying to research like new tactics, new weapons that are going to help them crack this thing. And the way it all ends up panning out is that most of these things cancel each other out. Like new tactics succeed once because nobody's seen them before, and then they get countered, and then they're not successful as much anymore. The arc of chemical weapons, when various armies started deploying them, chemical weapons were terrifying and devastating, and then within a surprisingly short amount of time, the other side would be having gas masks that could counter whatever was the chemical weapon you were deploying, so it wasn't effective anymore. So then you have to invest more time into researching a new chemical, and that would work once, and so on and so forth. But the big thing that happens sort of toward the end of the war is this notion of the image we all have of like the, sending guys in waves over the top of the trenches in World War One. That kind of stops being what is happening later in the war. There's a lot more like what are called like bite and hold attacks, where you actually target a much smaller like local section of the line and get troops up into position and slowly begin like almost crowbarring the position open. A lot more like infiltration tactics, etc., and a lot more like stuff that's readily adaptable to an RTS, like a lot more unit types. Different sorts of specialist troops being deployed for this thing. And those things are in the Great War Western Front, but the problem is the game, because every tactical battle is basically just your side is on the bottom of the map, the other side is on the top of the map, and you sort of push forces from one side over to the other. And every battle, you're seeing the same map again and again, depending on which territory you're fighting over. And it evolves with time. Like trenches will stay there once they've been dug. But it ends up being like a lot of like kind of out of context battles. And so that ends up kind of undercutting the whole thing a little bit, where it is you have those specialist units, but they're kind of just like you throw them in with your attack wave, but they don't really behave meaningfully differently than the units you've been playing around with the entire time. The game can't really like comprehend the way the war is changing as it goes on. So that's kind of the beef I had with it. In addition, so there's a lot of repetition, but I think the big things it's trying to get across about like, this is the way the war is evolving. It's kind of there, but the game is so simplified that it can't really bring out like, why are these things special? Why are these things so important as innovations? In this game's rendering, like flamethrower companies can be deployed, and those are really good at clearing trenches. And that's true. Like those were hugely important, assault forces that like Germany in particular added to their arsenal. But it was sort of everything else that they were a part of. The entire new approach to attacking trench lines had changed around them. And that's not really how it works here. It's much more like simple RTS stuff where it's like, these guys are a hard counter for infantry in a trench. And that's kind of it. I like it. I had fun with it. I tried to avoid my review, like using the word casual, because that can be kind of pejorative, but I guess
is approachable more accurate?
That is definitely more accurate. I also think there's almost like, I've been coming around this idea of like there's some games that are like quick session games, and this is definitely one of those where it's like it's very easy to have a quick, satisfying like 30, 25 minute play session where you play a turn, play a battle or two, and then you're out and you sort of put it aside. It's very easy to dip in and out of. There's not so much where you kind of got to get really invested in it, remember all that you're doing, and really dedicate some time and attention to it. This is much more of a like, hey, just like pick it up, put it down. It's kind of fun. It reminded me a lot of a Flash game, actually, I played. I
was going to ask, like, I saw that tweet of yours about discovering a thought dead Flash game that had been revived.
Yeah, and Armor
or
Games
saved, I guess.
Yeah, Armor Games was a one of those major Flash game developers, publishers back in the day, and they made a lot of like really standout games. And then, of course, when Flash stopped being supported, all those stopped working. And then, like just a month ago, a bunch of them were like restored to working order via emulation. So a bunch of their stuff.
We're emulating Flash now? Is that what we're doing?
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
And it works really
well. Flash, the famous, like, destroys your browser in a like part of the reason Flash died was because while it was a wonderful tool for a lot of different software purposes on the web, it also, with the rise of the mobile phone, essentially the iPhone killed Flash, or Steve Jobs killed.
Well, right. That's really the pointed, like...
Yeah. He wrote a whole letter about it, right? Like back in 2008 or something like that, and essentially said, we're done with this shit. And Flash's death essentially came slowly after Steve Jobs wrote that letter. But the notion that we've gone from, I frequently felt like a bloated piece of internet technology to now being emulated, famously a process that requires more. I mean, now granted, computers have come a long way, but there's something just very funny about that's where we've ended up with Flash.
Yeah, but either way, it's neat to see these games come back, and this is sort of a similar vibe. This is like, it is a really dressed up Flash game in some ways, or it's not like the types of games you played in the 90s, where like things were necessarily simpler and more abstracted, and this kind of fits neatly in that style, and that's both like a large measure of its charm, but also probably speaks to some of its drawbacks. We actually, Patrick, you and I have to duck out of here for a meeting as well. So I guess we should call it a wrap on today's episode of Waypoint Radio. if you want more from Waypoint, you can follow us on Twitter at Waypoint, Facebook and YouTube, Waypoint Vice. You can follow me on Twitter at Rob Zachney. Patrick, where can people follow you?
You can follow me at Patrick Klepek. We're down to 2. It's just you and I, Rob. I guess you can follow Kato at Akato_appears and Ren at Ren or Raven.
And you can also check out what we published on waypoint.vice.com. Hey, why don't you go read my article on the Great War Western Front, which turned into more of a survey of the subject as it exists within video games than a straightforward review. This is what happens when I'm like, I haven't really figured out like how to kick this thing off and end up writing 1,000 more words in the middle of the night as my vacation is supposedly ending. Turns out it has ended like a day earlier than I intended. Anyway, check it out. It's a fair bit of work I put into it, and I'm like, damn, that's so much harder than just podcasting. Why do I go to all that trouble? Anyway.
I could just say anything into a microphone.
But I will say I think I was more articulate and clear in my thoughts in the review. Anyway. And hey, thanks to Waypoint Plus, we've been able to have a bunch of fun streams lately. Last week, Patrick and Kato played a bunch of Chia, and there was some Minecraft happening. And then, Ren played the first 10 minutes of Resident Evil 4 Remastered for about an hour, while Kato streamed the pause screen from the original game. So I think we'll see what our plan is for the week. Maybe less of that. We might be checking out that Zelda live stream on Tuesday. By the time you listen to this, we will either have done that or not. I might also stream a bit of the Great War Western Front as it is releasing this week.
Any motorsports? Any managing?
I might, just me and Kato, and I have been thinking. I've been thinking about we were really poised for success. We really had a good car this year, and I think we were really ready to wreck house. So we might dust off Oberhof Racing and see what's up there. If that sounds good, or if you just want more Waypoint, you can go to waypointplus.com and subscribe. Not only do you get access to our premium feed, but you're also helping support Waypoint and everything else we do here. And if you want to show not just support, but zeal, go to waypointgeneralstore.com and buy some of our fine Waypoint merch. Our theme music is by Bowen. The track is Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. Learn more at waypoint.zone/BOEN. For now, we are calling time on this Tuesday. We will talk to you again on Friday. Well, Kato and I will. Until then, fuck capitalism. Go home, go on vacation. So you can learn more at waypointplus.com and see how you can fill this break with nothing but cool tunes.
Hey, you got to see where your money went at the beginning of this podcast.